So in this video, we're going to go over the meaning of life in a general overview, and for me to communicate this idea effectively, it's important we get on the same page for some relevant definitions. The first idea we should tackle is what you're experiencing as a conscious living being. I believe we should call this, hopefully without too much pushback, the self. So here we have a definition of the self, and it's what you experience at a given time. However, the self does not exist on its own. It's possessed by you, more commonly expressed as yourself. Going forward, I would like yourself to refer to the self you experience at the present moment, while your other selves you have either already experienced, which are your past selves, or will experience later, your future selves. Next, I like to ask the seemingly simple, yet ever difficult question of who are you? People give all sorts of answers to this question, which makes sense since there are all sorts of people. You could be a firefighter, a daughter, a millionaire, an author, and or many other things. Notice these are all descriptions of you in the present tense. You also exist in the past, you were a baby, or in the future, you will be a corpse. These descriptions are all part of you, but do not describe you in your entirety. Therefore, I am also interested in the general answer that we can extract from everyone's definitions, a common thread, so to speak. Here is my broad answer to that everlasting question I started with. Here we have a definition of you, and it's that you are everything that leads to yourself and leads from yourself. What leads to yourself are your past selves, and what leads from yourself are your future selves. This is how we can understand the continuity of you. So here we have a visualization of the definitions we have so far, and on the x-axis we have time, and on the y-axis we have existence. So we see that yourself is at the center, because that's you at the present moment, and then you lead out from yourself in the past, and out from yourself in the future. And then an example of your past self is going to be a line going through you in the past, and an example of your future self is a line going through, but in the future. But then we might ask, where do you begin and where do you end? For humans, it's usually agreed upon that you as a person begin at birth and end at death. But I argue that this is really limiting in the scope of who you are. For the past, it can be argued that you are still you before you were born. In fact, with this definition, you are the sperm from your father and the egg from your mother. So literally, you are both partly your father and partly your mother. So we can see that here. But they're partly their parents, so you are partly your grandparents, and so on, going backwards genealogically. And we can see that here. But also, you are who you interacted with in the past. You are the people you've met and learned from, both friends and enemies. But since you are partly your parents, you are also partly the people they've interacted with, and so on. And we can see that visualization here. Now for the future, your children come from you, so they are partly you, and you are partly them. Same for their children, and so on. But you are again the people you interact with, and so you live on through those people as well. Therefore, you exist even while the you we commonly understand as a living person either hasn't been born or has already died, but in a more fractal sense. And now we can finally get to the meaning of life. And the fundamental concept to reach the meaning of life for your life is to recognize that the meaning of your life probably isn't too different from the meaning of life for your family. And the meaning of life for your family is not too different from the meaning of life for your community. Continuing this logic, we can say that the meaning of life is not too far from your societies, all human life, primate life, mammalian life, and so on, until life in general. Indeed, the meaning of life, as hinted at in the phrase, should be shared by all life. To find this, we first need to describe what separates life from non-life. To do that, we look at what life boils down to. It is known that life boils down to chemical reactions that lead to more chemical reactions, and so on. So what came before life must have been attempts at chemical reactions that would continue to chemical reactions similar to itself. However, it wasn't until there was a chemical reaction that truly could be self-sustaining that we describe it as life. Also, this life we now have must be able to continue itself. If it didn't, the chemical reaction would end, and that is what we call death. Therefore, if we could describe a meaning to this self-sustaining chemical reaction, even though a chemical reaction doesn't need a purpose to occur, it would be to continue self-sustaining. That is, the meaning of life is to continue itself. Again, failure to continue itself is death, which is to be avoided if life is to continue as it has. Thus, we have a definition of what life is, and in turn, we have a definition of what death is. In the next video, we will talk about the human interpretation of this meaning of life.